join me in the prayer. Come and remember the love of Jesus, gathered at table with his friends. Come to receive from Christ the bread of life, the cup of blessing. Come receive the tender service Christ offers each of us. Come to receive the challenge of the new commandment, love one another. Come and contemplate the many temptations of a world that would entice us, like Judas, to betray the trust of a suffering God. Come to travel with Jesus the way of the cross so that our Easter Alleluia will take on new meaning. Let us worship together and reflect upon the life of Christ, that we might remember what discipleship may cost and what it may reap. Let us pray. Holy God, draw us into worship with a spirit of humility. Let us gather with open hearts prepared to love, even to the point of breaking. As we seek to receive this story with our whole selves, in drawing closer to Christ and his crucified love, may we draw closer to you in your beloved world. Amen. Come and rest, come and listen. Lay the fullness of your lives before the Maker.
On the first day of the unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where do you want us to make the preparations for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they became greatly distressed and began to say to him one after another, "Surely not, my Lord." He answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." He replied, "You have said so." While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it, gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from all of it, all of you. For this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will never again drink of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." There's rest for the weary, peace for the hurry. So come to the river and be healed. Jesus gathered with his disciples at this table, and he broke bread. He ate a meal with them. He ate a meal with Peter, who he knew would deny him. He ate a meal with James and John, who were there, and Peter, who could not even stay awake, and would not stay awake with him.
in his moments of agonizing pain. They would abandon him, in a sense. He ate a meal with Judas, who would hand him over to the authorities. In the Gospel of John, he goes even further. In the Gospel of John, we don't have, they don't gather for a final meal on Passover. Their meal is several days ahead of time. But on the night of Passover, preparation, Jesus gathers them and he washes their feet as if he were the servant. That would be the custom of that day, is if you were traveling, you came to someone's home. Wouldn't that be a great custom tonight? Where you enter somebody's house and they would sit you down and one of their servants would wash your feet before anything else happened. But in this great reversal, Jesus puts himself in the place of the servant. And he washes every person's feet. Every person. He washes the feet of Peter, who will deny him 3 times. He washes the feet of James and John and Peter, who will all abandon him. He washes the feet of Judas, who he knows will hand him over to the authorities. Imagine the kind of love that it takes to offer that kind of service and compassion. Imagine what our world might look like if we truly, truly held that as followers of Christ. That this is the love that he's talking about when he talks about loving your neighbor. That it requires something else. It requires forgiveness. It requires grace. It requires a willingness to even see ourselves in the place of Peter, James, and John, and yes, even Jesus. If Jesus can gather them at table and offer this kind of grace, forgiveness, and love, who could possibly be denied the privilege of this table? Don't think anyone. All are invited. We are all present at the table. In our brokenness, in our strengths, in our goodness, and in our humility and times of shame. We are here. And it is through Jesus' brokenness of himself that he allows his body to be broken, literally broken on the cross, that we find our place and see, truly see that love. Renewed, reborn, resurrected in our lives and in our world. Come and receive the gifts of this table. Come and receive them, and then be willing to give them. As you heard from the Gospel of Matthew, that Jesus gathered with his disciples in a small upper room where they were preparing and sharing a simple Passover meal. And as the bread was passed, he took it and he broke it, saying, "This is my body that is broken. It is broken for you. Whenever you eat, do so in my name and remember." That's all. Just remember. And in the same way as the cup was passed, he took it and he blessed it. He gave thanks, saying, "This is a cup of a new covenant." It's not even a new covenant, not really. It's the covenant. It's our covenant with God that has been and always will be. This is poured out for you. When you drink from this cup, drink in my name. Remember. As that night, it is true on this night as well, that this table is set and this invitation is extended through Jesus, who is the Christ, my God. And everyone who comes to this table is welcomed, and there is plenty for all who would come to receive the gift, bread of life. Drink from this cup of new life and covenant. Before I take the body of my Lord, before I share his life in bread and wine, I recognize the sorry things within. These I lay down.
When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of this night, for it is written, 'I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered.' But after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all the disciples. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So, could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again he went away for the 2nd time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the 3rd time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand."
Meet me here by
While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him was a large crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him." At once he came to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, what you are about here to do." And they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back in its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will send more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say this must happen this way?" At the hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me, as though were I a bandit? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all disciples deserted and fled him. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, in whose house the scribes and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him at a distance, as far as the courtyard of the high priest. And going inside, he sat with the guards in order to see how this would end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for false testimony against Jesus so that they might put him to death. But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At last 2 came forward and said, "This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and build it in 3 days." The high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?" But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "You have said so. But I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated on the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" They answered, "He deserves death." Then they spat on his face and struck him. Some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy us to Messiah. Who is it that struck you?" Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, "You are also with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before all of them, saying, "I do not know what you're talking about." Then, when he came out on the porch, another servant girl saw him and said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again he denied them with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while, the bystanders came and said to Peter, "Certainly you are also one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows, You will deny me 3 times. And he went out and wept bitterly.
Through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend upon God's word. Matthew 27, verses 1 through 2, and verses 11 through 44. When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus in order to bring about his death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You say so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many accusations they make against you?" But he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now at the festival, the governor was accustomed to release a prisoner for the crowd, anyone whom they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Jesus Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you, Jesus, Barabbas, or Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that innocent man. For today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him." Now the chief priest and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" All of them said, "Let him be crucified." Then he asked, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified." So when Pilate saw that he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took some water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." Then the people as a whole answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." So he released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews." They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene named Simon. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to the place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes among themselves by casting lots. Then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head, they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 bandits were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and the elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we will believe him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now if he wants to. For he said, 'I am God's son.'" The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way.
See from his head, his hands, his feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown?
Matthew 27, 45 to 54. From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani?" That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "This man is calling for Elijah." At once one of them ran and got a sponge and filled it with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." Then Jesus cried out again in a loud voice and breathed his last. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs were also opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. After his resurrection, they came out of the tombs and entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now when the centurion and those with him who were watching over Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were terrified and said, "Truly, this man is God's son."
All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. Every breath that I am able, I will sing the goodness of God. Yes, I will sing the goodness.
When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. He then rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb. The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember what that impostor said when he was still alive. After 3 days, I will rise again. Therefore, command the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may go and steal him away and tell the people he has been raised from the dead. And the last deception would be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can." So they went with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone.
Who would ever have believed it? Who could ever have conceived it? Who dare trace God's hand behind it? When a servant came among us.
If you're following along in the bulletin, it will tell you that there will be a song and then some closing words and then a benediction. But we changed it. So we wanted to have the sitting in silence. So Rachel's song will be our final, it will be our benediction. And you are invited to sit in prayer or meditation as long as you would like. We ask that, that we depart in silence quietly this evening. For we're not left in total darkness, right? Even in the dark and despite the desolate silence of the tomb, we're not left there. God has not deserted us and will not desert us. Even now we have the hope that was promised by the prophets and fulfilled in that Christmas manger. The Christ candle that was the center of our Advent wreath reminds us that in all times and in all circumstances, when it seems we have been abandoned and forsaken, even by God, we are not alone. God is with us.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb?
Fun.